Hello, friends. Welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Now, first of all, a disclaimer. The thumbnail and the title of this video is mostly satire. I'm creating this video to talk about a comment I received on a short that I published about how to deal with the rules lawyer. First, I'm going to play that short clip for you so that you can kind of see what's going on. Then I'm going to read the comment for you. Then I'm going to break it down. Basically, it's about me being a toxic and oppressive game master. A commenter watched a 60-second short of me talking about how to deal with rules lawyers, like one very specific thing. And they kind of drew a bunch of conclusions from that I completely feel are not true. However, I want to break it down because there was a lot in the comment. So I'm not going to share the commenter's name or anything. I'm just going to show the comment. But I think that this is a good thing to talk about. The conclusions that this person drew clearly came from an understanding of what a toxic game master, kind of an oppressive game master situation can look like. I want to break that down a little bit. I want to break down kind of some of the things that I do in my games to help avoid having players be in that kind of situation. So this isn't like a look at me and how good I am video. This is more of a, hey, look what some gamers have experienced. How do we as game masters keep from subjecting our players to bad experiences because of maybe our potentially toxic traits or some bad habits we might have or whatever. So that's what this video is going to be about, and I hope this is going to be interesting for you. So first, let's dive in and watch this short video. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play this video, and I'm going to project the comment up here on the screen. So I'm going to put it up there so we can see both things at the same time. But first, let me read through this comment real quick. I wouldn't play with you. So this is a comment left on this video. That mindset is toxic and majorly problematic. D&D isn't a monarchy. It's cooperative storytelling. Thinking you're in charge and your decisions are law ruins the game for others. It is collaborative. The players are just as important as the DM. You need to set rules in advance. And if that means you've decided to follow the rules as written in the books, then so be it. You can't just unilaterally decide they are wrong for wanting to follow the rules set in advance. I can understand take this approach if you've come across some described in the rules and needing to make on-the-spot decision, but even then, your players needs to be considered and weighed. You're not the teacher, and this isn't daycare. So very spicy, very spicy comment there. And there's a lot of very valid stuff in there. But we're just going to take this all from the beginning, okay? So now that you kind of know the context, let's watch the video. When you're playing D&D, how do you deal with a rules lawyer? Being a D&D game master or any TTRPG game master is a leadership position. And whenever you're in a leadership position, it is incumbent upon you, it's part of your responsibility to be able to engage in some what I call like peaceful and kind confrontation or even conflict. So like if there's a rules lawyer and they tell you the rules, this isn't a problem, you might really value their opinion. You might value their input. But let's just say that they tell you a rule and you say, well, we're going to rule it like this. Like, so maybe you're going to do it a little differently. And the problem is that they're like arguing with you about it. Well, after the second time they bring it up, you can say something like, I really appreciate that. However, we're going to do it this way. I think I'm going to rule it like this just because of the way the situation is. And then you just leave it at that. And then if they bring it up a third time, unfortunately, now it's escalating to kind of a bigger conflict. And you'll have to say something like, look, I really appreciate you so much. I love that you bring up the rules during the game. However, the truth is I am deciding to rule it this way. And that's just how we're going to do it. I really appreciate it. But I'm going to have to ask respectfully that we can just move on. Okay. Like sometimes it just be that way. When you're playing D&D. Okay, so that was the video. We may go back through this a little bit again in a moment, but first of all, okay, let's go through here and address some things kind of from front to back. So first of all, this commenter says, I wouldn't play with you. That mindset is toxic and majorly problematic. Okay, so as a 60-second clip, I couldn't give huge context in that clip, but let's give the benefit of the doubt. Is that actually a toxic and problematic viewpoint? No, unless you are literally like breaking the rules in ways that are going to make your players feel bad, and it's like legit. As the GM, you're just randomly deciding that you want to break rules, that you don't want to follow rules, and then when they try to say, "Hey, but the rules would let me do this," you say, "No, I don't care. I'm the game master. You listen to me." That would be toxic and problematic. That is in no way, shape, or form what I'm advocating in this video. Speaking of that, if you would like to learn more about my GM style and what I believe is really important to running a game, you can download my free ebook, 10-Minute GM Mastery Toolkit. This condenses 20 plus years of gaming wisdom into 10 powerful tips and a 10-minute read, like designed to help you level up your next session in 10 minutes or less. This goes along with our mission of empowering game masters to run better games. So if you want an inside look at what I think is important for game masters to think about, then you can download this. Link is in the description. It's totally free. Can't go wrong. So make sure to grab that. All right, let's get back into this. So to the commenter, like, I appreciate your exuberance, but let's just pump the brakes just for a minute. I never said that was the way to do it. Okay, let's see what I did say. I generally try to be pretty careful with my words. In D&D, how do you deal with a rules lawyer? Being a D&D game master or any TTRPG game master is a leadership position. And okay, it is a leadership position. And there's no way around this. If you are leading this group on a storytelling adventure in an imaginary world where you're going to create a story together. You cannot get away from the fact that this is a leadership-oriented position. As such, it is incumbent upon you to make decisions that are best for the group. It's incumbent upon you to be a group organizer, a community organizer, and sometimes conflicts do occur, and it is up to you to mediate these conflicts in the best manner possible. This is your responsibility as a game master. You are basically a group community activity leader, right? Now, jumping back to the comment, does this mean, it's cooperative storytelling? Thinking you are in charge, your decisions are law, ruins the game for others. Okay, I never said that I'm in charge in the sense of like, I can just arbitrarily throw out the rules. Notice I never, ever said that. Okay, I realized that could have been conferred from this. I because it's such a small context, I totally understand, but I never said that. When I say this is a leadership position, what I mean is this is a leadership position in the sense that you are serving the players as a leader. You're leading from the front. This is a position of great responsibility, right? I've talked about these things before on the channel. Obviously, it's hard because most of the time when people leave a comment like this, they've only watched like one of my videos, and a lot of times it's out of context because they haven't watched the whole video. So I've had this happen quite a bit where people they like pick out a soundbite and they decide all of my game master ideologies kind of like basically on what they think I'm saying in that, their interpretation of one 60-second thing I said, which is kind of the glorious thing about YouTube Shorts, right? That's why we all love them, because they give such a short little snippet. But the truth is that being in charge in the sense of like, I can tell people what to do, that's not called leadership. That's called being bossy. That's called being a bully. That's called wanting your way all the time. Being a leader means taking responsibility for the group to make everything better, like legitimately, objectively better, leading the group to the destination you all want to get to. That's what I'm talking about in my video. There's a leadership thing. So calm down. Just calm down. I'm not trying to say that game masters should be bullies or that they're just in charge. What they say goes. I never said that. I never once said that. So let's everyone take a chill pill for a minute. All right, let's keep going. Now, when it comes to running emotionally resonant, transcendent games, if you want to hear what I really think, like my tactics, my insights, my philosophies, the stuff I actually believe in when it comes to running table, you should pick up my new premium ebook, 50 pages. This is the Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. This is the most in-depth ebook I've ever written on the topic of running games, running emotionally resonant games that will have your players on the edge of their seats wanting to come back next week and make it so that they cannot wait to get back into it, being very successful as a game master and emotionally engaging your players. This book is packed with insights I've learned running games for the past 24, 25 years. And right now it's available for a special introductory price because it's a brand new book. Links in the description. Do not miss out on that. You're going to be glad you picked it up. So make sure to grab that if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of my most in-depth tactics, philosophies, and insights. Whenever you're in a leadership position, it is incumbent upon you, it's part of your responsibility to be able to engage in some what I call like peaceful and kind confrontation or even conflicts. So this is true. A leader who cannot meet conflict head on in a kind and respectful way is not going to be an effective leader for very long. So there are times when conflict will threaten the dynamics of the group. And as the leader, it is your responsibility to deal with these things. And sometimes that involves, and this is true with the game table, this is true in life, this is true at work. If you've ever been a successful manager at your job, this would be very obvious to you. In a workplace, it's generally made up of mostly great people, and then there's like one or two toxic people who sometimes start conflict. And if you as the manager, if you as the leader cannot step into the middle and have that conflict for the rest of your team, that one person will be allowed to drag everyone else down with them. That's what I'm talking about. So once again, just calm down. Just calm down. Going back to the comment here, the players are just important as the DM. Okay. So leadership. A wise leader understands that the strength of the team is their responsibility. This is a servant-oriented position where you are serving your team to make them the best that they can be. And are they more important? It's a relationship. It's a positive symbiotic relationship. Without a team, the leader is dead in the water. I can't run a restaurant by myself. So this would be an example of like, management in a restaurant setting. I cannot run a game of D&D by myself. In that sense, the players are just monumentally important, hugely important. But also, a team isn't going to go very far without a leader. You can only get by for so long without someone making a grander plan and organizing the team to get there. This is one thing about humans, is that we don't tend to organize ourselves super well beyond like a few bodies. At some point, someone needs to start asking the big questions. How do we organize ourselves? How do we schedule things? What standards should our group be upheld to? And you can hash these things out, but without enforcement from a leader, they're just not going to go very far. And once again, like, you might say, well, GM Philosopher, I've been gaming the same group for the years, and we get along just fine, and we don't need a leader. Okay, great. That's awesome. But I've been at tables like that, and I've been at tables that needed a leader. I've been at a lot of different tables. I've been in work positions where everyone kind of knew what to do, and you could just leave them alone and they do it. And I've been in work positions that if you didn't really keep an eye on things and you didn't really work to coordinate and keep everyone coordinated, everything would fall apart and then the whole team would suffer. I've been in both situations. So just once again, just calm down. I never said that the GM was more important than the players. It's a positive, equally important symbiotic relationship. Okay. All right, let's go back to the video here. So like, if there's a rules lawyer and they tell you the rules, this isn't a problem, you might really value their opinion. Okay, so right there, that's been true. I've often said that I designate a rules lawyer at my table, and I highly value this person's input and help. Here's what the commenter said. The players are just as important as the DM. You need to set rules in advance, and if that means you've decided to follow the rules as written in the books, and so be it. Fair. Yeah, I totally agree. You can't just unilaterally decide they're wrong for wanting to follow the rules set in advance. I don't know who said that. I never said that in the video, but I would agree. I would agree. I don't know why you're telling me this, but yes, I can understand taking this approach. What approach? What approach am I taking here? That I can unilaterally decide they're wrong for wanting to follow the rules in advance, because I never said that. So I don't know who you're talking to. If you're talking to me, I don't know why you're projecting this onto me, but I never said it, right? I can understand taking this approach if you've come across some situation not described in the rules and needing to make on-the-spot decision. Okay, this is a different thing. Now, this is different than what was just said. Unilaterally deciding if people are wrong for wanting to follow the rules that you set in advance is different than saying you've come across a situation not described in the rules and you need to make an on-the-spot decision. Those are two completely different things. And in the video, here's what I said. Problem, you might really value their opinion. You might value their input. Actually, let's go back a little bit more. And they tell you the rules, this isn't a problem. You might really value their opinion. You might value their input. But let's just say that they tell you a rule and you say, well, we're going to rule it like this. Like, so maybe you're going to do it a little differently. And the problem is that they're like arguing with you about it. Okay. Now, granted, this is a 60-second clip. When you upload YouTube Shorts, they have to be less than 60 seconds. There's not a whole lot of room for context. So let me take a moment and break down what I mean here. I am not talking about unilaterally changing rules that the group expected in advance. If a person shows me a rule in a book, like if I'm about to make a ruling and they say, hold on, GM, but the rules say to do it like this, if they show that to me, I mean, 99.5% of the time, either I'm going to say, well, that wouldn't apply here if it truly didn't apply here for one reason or another. Or if it did apply there and I was just making a mistake, or I had forgotten the rule, or maybe I didn't even realize there was a ruling on that, then I'm going to say to them, oh, wow, okay, you know what? Scratch that. We're going to follow it. Rules as written from the book and go. That's what I would do. Hey, one more thing. I really appreciate everyone watching my videos. And if you're still watching at this point, I love you. You're amazing. So thank you so much for watching my content. I'm making a huge effort to make this channel even bigger and better and make it even more successful. And if you would like to help, if you appreciate my videos, you could do a couple things to help me. Number one, you could become a member of my YouTube channel. Then you can watch my videos in advance. As soon as they're uploaded, you won't even have to wait until they come out. This helps to support my channel. Number two, you could buy me a coffee. If you don't want to buy any of my products or become a channel member and you just want to make a one-time donation, link is in the description. You can do that. If you don't have any coins to spare, you just don't have any extra money to spend, I totally get it. Things are getting expensive out there. So if you can just hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave a comment, that helps me grow in the algorithms and is so helpful. So thank you so much for all your support. I really appreciate all you awesome people helping me to make this channel bigger and better than ever. So, all right, let's get back into it. Now, the commenter did not seem to accept that this could be a possibility. They just said thinking you're in charge, your decisions are law, ruins the game for others. It is collaborative. I agree it's collaborative. I talk all the time about this. The players are just as important as the DM. You need to set rules in advance. If that means you've decided to follow the rules as written in the book, so be it. I agree. And that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So when I'm talking about this decision with the rules lawyer, let me describe to you what I mean. Let's continue this video just a little bit more. Well, after the second time they bring it up, you can say something like, I really appreciate that. However, we're going to do it this way. I think I'm going to rule it like this just because of the way the situation is. And, okay. Now, obviously, once again, it's a 60-second clip. Maybe I could have found a better way to word it in 60 seconds. But what I mean is exactly what I was saying before. Let's say that I make a ruling about something that's kind of like not specifically articulated in the rules, or there's a special circumstance, some kind of outside variable that makes the rules not a great fit for this situation. And then I say, okay, here's how we're going to rule it because of these things or whatever. Sometimes they may be known variables. Sometimes they may be unknown variables, which is a little bit hard. In which case, like, let's say, for example, there's a spell going on, but the players are not aware of it, and it's causing the physicalness of the world to react differently to stimulation. And then if they try to hit, and I say, and I'd previously said their armor class is 14, and they try to hit, they roll 16, and I say, uh-oh, something happened. Your weapon glances off, you miss. But then they might be like, well, hold on, GM, their armor class is 14. I rolled a 16, therefore, rules is written, I should get to hit. And this has happened many times at my table, because a lot of times there's, especially at higher levels, there's wild stuff going on all the time. In which case I would say something like, yes, you are totally right. Roll me a quick insight check. And then they might roll it, or I might call for a perception check or an arcana check, and I'll say, like, you are right. In fact, you were so sure you were going to hit them that you were completely surprised, even dumbfounded, when your weapon, was knocked to the side. This leads you to believe there might be something going on, perhaps a spell-like ability that is further impeding your ability to hit this enemy. And so basically above table, I'm giving you like a clue that it seems to be a spell element going on that you were previously unaware of, right? So this is the kind of situation I'm talking about, right? Now, I have had players at my table before continue to press the issue. So, and this is a really direct example. Speaking of me running games, I am currently recruiting for The Darkest Dawn, my newest game on Start Playing Games. If you are interested in jumping into a grimdark D&D 5e sandbox adventure in my homebrew world of Regenesis, playing games with me, the GM Philosopher, then this is the perfect chance. Link is in the description. As of the time I'm recording this, I only have 2 slots available, but don't worry, because after this one fills up, I'll probably be starting a second one. So you'll get a little bit of a chance to get in there, even if you don't get right to it right away. But I would encourage you to go check it out, because slots are going to fill up quick. So just letting you know, if you want to play a game with me, I would love to have you. Make sure to check that out. Let's just say that I said that. Okay. Now, if I was the player at a table and the GM said that to me, I would just say, oh, gotcha. Okay, I see. I'm an understanding. I think this is fair. I think this is fine. And in fact, I appreciate that I was given like a clue, right? I've been a player in games where I tried to use an ability a certain way, and I felt that I should have been able to do it a specific way by the book, but the GM ruled it differently. And then a lot of times they give like a little explanation for why. And I might have even said something like, well, hold on, GM. In the rules, it says I would get this. Now, it's up to you. I'm just, kind of showing you the rules just to see if it matters at all. And then they might say, and I've had this happen, they might say something like, well, because of this in this situation, we're going to roll a little differently. In which case I'll say, great, that's awesome. I'm not going to argue with the GM. I'm not going to fight with them, because if I trust the GM, if they've earned my trust, I'm going to trust them to rule it, and then I'm going to enjoy the story and the effect that will have on the story. Maybe I'll role play that in character, right? So this is how to handle it as a player. This is how I think mature players handle those situations. But I've had players basically throw a tantrum at my table when I talk about this. They basically say, you can't do that. You can't, if you told me their armor class is 14 and I rolled a 16, rules is written, I get to hit. I get to roll damage. So can I roll damage? Right? I've had a couple players this hasn't been super common thing, but I have had situations where I've had players be very, let's say, confrontational with me about exactly this kind of thing. I've run a lot of games, guys. I've run a lot of games for a lot of people. I've run games with brand new people I never met before, and I've run games with friends I've had for years. And I've encountered this. Okay. If you haven't encountered it, maybe count yourself lucky, but I have encountered it. And I've learned that these kinds of people take up time from the rest of the players. They drag the whole mood down with their negative attitude. Their inability to accept a ruling that you gave in good faith for good reasons is bad blood. It's bad juju for the whole table. I'm not talking about a player saying, hey, GM, but I feel like I should get to do this because of this ruling. So a lot of times they may be right. And I would say, Oh, got you. No, totally. I'm sorry. You go ahead and do that. I wasn't thinking about that. To be really honest, I forgot about that. I have said that hundreds of times in my game table. Okay. So commenter, just slow your roll. Okay. You don't know anything about me. And when you say that my mindset is toxic and majorly problematic, that's a bit taken out of context here. Okay. The truth is, I do not believe my mindset is toxic. I believe that if I would have let those few but conflicting players bully me at the table with their rules lawyering in the situations just to get anything they wanted because they refused to accept anything they couldn't plan ahead for, what would that have shown? It would have shown that I'm going to just let players steamroll me. What does that mean for the other players? Am I going to let these players also bully the other players? Because this is another very consistent theme I've noticed throughout running games. Almost 100% of the time, these types of players that I'm specifically talking about, these rules lawyering kind of these people who argue with the GM about rules, almost 100% of the time, they had a tendency to bully other players at the table too. They would rules lawyer other players. They'd try to tell them they could or couldn't do a thing because the rules said so. They would jump in and they would start running the mechanics of the game. This is nearly 100% consistent. I don't know if you've ever met a player like this. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. If you have, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's just not. It brings down the mood. It's not right that another player should get to come in and say what other players can do when the game master is supposed to be the leader. That's a lack of responsibility on the game master's part to let that go down that way. If anyone's going to tell the other players no, it should be the game master because they're the one leading the activity. Okay, other players shouldn't get to veto it. They can bring up things. They could say, "Hey, what about this thing?" Blah blah blah. But it's not like something where whoever just decides they can tell someone else to do something can tell them, and then they're allowed to. So everyone's allowed to order everyone else around. No, that's called chaos. That's not called an organized game table. So anyway, let's continue. And then you just leave it at that. And then if they bring it up a third time, unfortunately, now it's escalating to kind of a bigger conflict. And you'll have to say something like, look, I really appreciate you so much. You have to be willing to have the conflict with those people. You have to be willing to be brave enough and kind enough and respectful enough to say, hey, no, we're not doing it. Sorry, not at this table. You're totally allowed to voice your opinion. I will totally take it into account. I will rule as fairly as possible. But at the end of the day, it's my job, my duty to arbitrate the rules at this table. If you don't like that, go find a table where I guess they don't have a strong GM who's going to stand up to you when you try to order everyone around, right? Now, in the commenter's defense, I realize I'm over 22 minutes into this, recording this video, and I realize that there's no way I could have put all this into a 60-second short. So the commenter probably deduced some things from this, inferred some things from this, kind of, what they thought I was saying, which is understandable. And, who knows? I could have probably worded it a little differently, but I'm addressing it because I think it's important to address. Because I do think game masters need to be responsible leaders at their table. There's no way around that. There's no way around it. And everyone is like, well, why should you have to do that? It's fun. It's fun until someone comes in and starts trying to ruin it. And then you need to protect the sanctity of your table. I don't know if you've ever been forced to protect the sanctity of your table through healthy and kind conflict and confrontation over disagreements, but it does happen. Anytime you're in a position of leadership long enough with enough people, there's going to come a point when the integrity of what you're trying to accomplish together is going to be challenged by one of the people involved. This is true if you're running business. This is true if you are engaging in any kind of activity where you have some kind of organized effort with like several people. And the more people you have, the more likely this is to happen, right? So I ran games for years with, 8 to 13 players a night at the table. A lot of people in the mix. So there's a lot of opportunity for, disorganization, dysregulation, basically there's a lot of room for people to sow chaos in that environment and to ruin the experience for the other players who are trying to have an immersive game of D&D. And I probably also haven't always done it perfectly. I've had a lot of practice, though. I will say that. I've had a lot of practice with having what I call kind and respectful conflict with people at the D&D table. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience with that. But my players always seemed really grateful to me for not letting other players steamroll them, right? And by extension, not letting players steamroll me as the game master. Okay, let's continue the comment here. I can understand taking this approach if you've come across some situation not described in the rules needing to make an on-the-spot decision, but even then, the opinion of the players needs to be considered and weighed. Okay, the opinion of the players needs to be considered and weighed. I never said otherwise. So okay, like I don't know why you're telling me that. I literally never said anything different. I believe you. I agree. The opinions of the players should be considered and weighed. In fact, you should give your players generally the benefit of the doubt. Usually believe them. That's what I usually do. I usually believe my players. When it comes to a ruling, if they say, well, my ability works this way, unless I just know for sure it doesn't, then generally I'm inclined to believe them and say, gotcha. Okay, all right, let's rule it that way. I've done that so many times. Literally, that's usually what I do because I'm not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I don't know every single rule perfectly. And I'm not a particularly rules lawyery GM anyway. I typically tend to be more of a rule of cool GM. So it's not even that big of a deal. It's not a big deal until someone makes it a conflict, until someone starts trying to steamroll others with the rules. That's when I step in and I say, hey, let's chill. Let's chill a little bit. Okay. So you're not the teacher and this isn't daycare. Okay. Once again, I never said that in the video. I never implied that in the video. Not at a single point did I ever imply that in the video. And if this person has watched any of my other videos and they're still saying this, I don't know what to say because I talk constantly and incessantly about the crucial nature, the deep nature of how this is the creation of intellectual art together. We can make this a transcendent, emotionally resonant experience. We can make this so special, so good, so deep. And we should empower our players. We should be our players' number one advocate. We should not be discouraging them, beating them down. We should be empowering them to find unique ways to tell the stories of their characters in whatever way we can find to do that. I talk about this a lot. So to the commenter here, I think that you made a lot of assumptions about me that I don't even agree with, that I even speak against in many of my videos. I would love to hear if now any of this makes more sense or clarity. And I'd love to hear you in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. I think that leadership is something I am relatively passionate about alongside D&D. Like I'm passionate about this in all respects because I know firsthand how demoralizing it can be to try to engage in something and try to have fun doing something and then have bad leadership drag it down. I have been in workplaces where this happened. I've been on sports teams where this happened. I've played D&D with terrible leaders and I quit those games right away because I was like, I can tell right away that this person doesn't have my respect and I don't think they're going to earn it. And that's just the truth. Whereas game masters that I like to play with, they pretty much earn my respect and they deserve it. And I do respect them and I trust them to see to the integrity of the game. DM Ramos, William, Dungeons and 20s in the game that I play Gramazek in, fantastic GM, has on several occasions made slightly different rulings than probably what rules is written in my ability descriptions. Never had an issue with it because there was always a really good reason, very understandable reason. And I never felt like I was being picked on or bullied or bulldozed. It always felt like a story narrative thing. And I was like, okay, all right, because that's what I'm here to do, tell the story of this character. So as a player, I never had an issue with that. As a player, I have experienced GMs just like literally bulldozing me because they were trying to project a story onto me. No bueno. And I talk against that all the time on my channel. So none of us are perfect. We all try to get better. Am I, at the end of the day, a GM with a toxic mindset and a problematic mindset? I don't believe that I am. And I believe that I think I used to be. I think I used to be a very railroady GM. And I think I realized how that just ruined my games. When I realized when people refused to be in my games, that was no fun for them. And so I changed, partly it's just because I didn't understand. I didn't really understand how to do it. It's because it's an art form and it's a creative art form and it takes practice to run awesome games. But anyway, so boom, there you have it. Those are my thoughts for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for coming back for another episode of Gym Philosophy in the Morning. I'll see you awesome people on the next one.